Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Sir Hunt on X on this 30th of September 2025. As I'm coming to you live from Cincinnati, Ohio, in the United States of America. Here's someone, everyone had themselves a wonderful day today. Uh, nice weather here in Cincinnati once again. A little bit on the warmer side, but the cooler temperatures are starting to come little by little, and the fall weather hopefully is finally here. Suddenly, early to low to mid 80s a few of the days this week, which is just crazy for a late September as we roll into October. Usually, it's the colder weather that starts to come through with hoodies and leaves falling. But here we are. I mean, we're already three-quarters of the way of the 2025 calendar year. Year's gone by pretty quick. I mean, I don't know for you guys, but for me, it has. So that's what we have here in the 2025 calendar year. Uh, Hope everyone had themselves a wonderful day today. Gonna get right down to it. Lots to get to, including the end of a breakup that went to legal levels, which I'll touch on at the end of the show. Let's get right down to it. It's of course the doubleheader last night that took place between the Jets and the Dolphins. Story here, of course, unfortunately, the Tyreek Hill injury. Godspeed, Tyreek Hill. Get well soon. Get back onto the field. You're as good as any wide receiver in the NFL when you're on. You hate to see it, but welcome back to the NFL, Darren Waller. 2 touchdowns in a particular game with a win. And what you had as a result was a Miami offense that looked a little better, but not necessarily something to brag about because you beat the Jets. I mean, Justin Fields looked pretty good, but the team as a whole, still got a ways to go. But Miami's off the winless mark. They get the win. Not necessarily all that great because they're still going to be on a fire sale more than likely come the trade deadline because they're not going anywhere. Don't know who's going to be available. Don't know what's going to take to get set players. Of course, the hot seat of Mike McDaniel still going to be hot because that's what's going on down there in Miami. I mean, they forked out all that capital to get Tyreek Hill and just crapped the bed. While the team that they got him from the Kansas City Chiefs, they won three straight Super Bowl appearances and won 2 of them. And I'll just shut this down real quick before I proceed. The Kansas City Chiefs traded Tyreek Hill for a reason, and we know what it is at the end of the day. When he went to Miami, the Kansas City Chiefs took all the draft capital, put a defense together, won 2 straight Super Bowls, had 3 straight Super Bowl appearances, while Miami has basically had 1 playoff appearance to show for it. And this myth of the Chiefs needing Tyreek Hill and trouble wanting to get him back, you can might as well shoot that myth. It's absolutely dead because when the Chiefs went back-to-back after they sent Tyreek Hill off the door, that killed every narrative. And when Tyreek Hill went to Miami, Miami's been irrelevant since that point. 1 playoff appearance, guess who it was against? The Kansas City Chiefs. And what happened there? They lost at Arrowhead. So that should tell you the value that the Chiefs saw in Tyreek Hill when they sent him out the door. Got a package, and with that particular package, built a defense, from the ground up, and that's why they had what they'd had. And for Tyreek Hill, more than likely his last year in Miami, they'll probably deal or something else. But this Tyreek Hill narrative from Kansas City has been shot down for since the day they traded him because all they did is gone to 3 straight Super Bowls and win 2 of them. And for the Miami Dolphins, they're probably going to ship him and several others out at the trade deadline because they're going to be massive sellers. I wouldn't be surprised if it's a fire sale. Likely Mike McDaniel's going to be out. They get the win, but it was against the Jets. Nothing worth bragging about. So that's what we had there at the end of the day. They got the win. Didn't necessarily look all that great, but they were playing the Jets. That's the only reason why they got the win. They played anybody else, they probably wouldn't have gotten the win in that particular game. Because that's how bad Miami's been so far this season. And this is still going to be a long one. And come trade deadline, they're going to be sellers. And speaking of people that have no value, right now, we have problems in Cincinnati. And this is the crux of the conversation. Coming off 1 quit job in Minnesota last Sunday We basically quit 48-10. You go into Denver and you quit again. And we're talking about 2 quit jobs. I mean, the game wasn't as close as the scores indicated. The only reason why it was remotely close was Bo Nix threw an unnecessary red zone interception to one of the Bengals linebackers. Can't think of his name. And their offense wasn't necessarily lining it up either. And the Bengals just got dog walked from start to finish. This is what you expect when you are psychotically obsessed with one of your top 3 players playing top dollar. And as a result, you got what you got last night and the week before. It's simple math. And there's something Bengals fans and Cincinnati media lack in common sense comprehension. And because they lack common sense comprehension, that's what you got at the end of the day as a result. And because of it, that's why you had what happened last Sunday in Minnesota and last night in Denver. And it's going to continue. You got Detroit coming to town, who's basically an offensive juggernaut. You're going to have a Green Bay team coming off a bye and who basically knows they laid an egg in Dallas. They're going to take it out on you. And not to mention, Pittsburgh's coming into town on that Thursday night. So good luck the next 3 games. And for you guys in the Bengals fandom and the Cincinnati media, might be time for you guys to look at yourselves in the mirror, because you guys are every bit to blame as to what's been going on here. You guys are pointing blame at Zach Taylor. You guys are pointing blame at ownership. At this point, blaming ownership and blaming Zach Taylor gets you guys nowhere, because you cannot make a tiger change the stripes. Might as well look at yourselves in the mirror. Look at the members of the Cincinnati media in the mirror. Look at the Bengals super fans in the mirror, because all you guys are the reason for this. And it's been a trickle effect that started 4 years ago, when you guys were obsessed with wanting Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, and T. Higgins paid top dollar, to now, and you didn't pay attention to the details. You wanted Orlando Brown Jr. so you can send Jesse Bates out the door. Don't get me started on how he looked the last 2 weeks, because, a statue could burn Orlando Brown Jr. If Orlando Brown Jr. was lined up against a statue. That's how bad Orlando Brown Jr. has looked since coming to the Bengals. And there's a reason why Ravens and Chiefs fans were laughing at you when you guys made the signing. So all you guys right now are getting exactly what you deserve. I told you guys, don't wind up like Enron. You're getting close. And we know what happened to Enron once they were found out as frauds and all the activity that took place. The Bengals fans and the Cincinnati media are basically the sports version of Enron when it comes to all of them, because they're every bit the frauds Enron was, and now they're plummeting and they're sinking as a result. And I warned everyone 4 years ago this was going to happen if you don't do things the right way. Nobody wants to do things the right way. Nobody does around here. Not the super fans like Drew Garrison, Zim, the captain, Kelsey Conway. They don't want to do things the right way. And because of it, we saw what happened last Sunday in Minnesota, and the same thing followed through last night in Denver. And I don't know what's going to happen Sunday in Detroit, because they might have to implement a mercy rule, because it's going to be that bad. And good luck trying to win in Green Bay coming off a bye, who's going to be pretty pissed off. And your division rival, the Pittsburgh Steelers, are coming to town next. Good luck the next 3 games, because if you don't conduct yourselves better or carry yourselves better, you're fixing for one of the grotesque embarrassments you could ever come across with, because the next 3 games, it's going to be an unmitigated disaster at the rate you're going. I told you guys, don't wind up like Enron. You're there. And if you guys want to go that route, have at it. Because I got news for you. Once the end of the season comes and you miss the playoffs, and that's going to more than likely happen at this rate, I will make sure you guys get it, because this was coming. This was coming. And I told you guys, when you got Burrow, Chase, and Higgins paid top dollar, all the excuses you make for them and the team are out the window. No room for excuses anymore. None. Because you lost that right when you got Burrow, Chase, and Higgins paid top dollar. Those days are done. If you're not going to get the job done, look at what happened to Enron. Go ahead and join them, because that's where the Bengals fans and the Cincinnati media belongs. When it comes to this particular game, the play calling, we get it. What do you expect to go from Joe Burrow to Jake Browning? You guys want Jake Browning to be the reincarnation of a prime Dan Marino? That's not going to happen, because you could call the prime Dan Marino of 85 on that roster, you're going to get Dan Marino killed because the play calling and the offensive line protection on that roster, you put Speedy Gonzalez as their quarterback, and they'll find a way to get to Speedy Gonzalez. That's how bad the Bengals play calling and offensive line is, courtesy of the Bengals fans and the Cincinnati media. That's how bad it is. I mean, not even Speedy Gonzalez going arriba is going to find a way to dodge the oncoming defense behind that Bengals offensive front. And now you guys want Jameis Winston, Russell Wilson, and Kirk Cousins on your roster? Psychopathy at its finest. Because I got news for you. Kirk Cousins is a shot commodity after he blew his ACL in Minnesota. Russell Wilson's been a shot commodity. And if you want him over there in Cincinnati, I got news for you. Steelers fans will let you guys have it because they'll tell you what happened when they made the mistake to start Russell Wilson over Justin Fields last year. And Russell Wilson just took the Steelers down the tubes. And Jameis Winston, there's a reason why that guy's been a career backup. Don't get me started on that year in Tampa where he threw 30 intentional interceptions with 30 touchdowns. You guys think they're just going to come in here and save your season? Ain't going to work. I don't care who the quarterback is or that roster or on that offensive line. Could be a prime Dan Marino, could be Speedy Gonzalez, Bugs Bunny, could be Fred Flintstone, could be me, could be anybody else. They're getting killed, and that offense isn't getting anything done. Good luck, because you're going to need it. I'll save the rest for you guys once the season is officially over and you're officially eliminated, because some people are going to get it for the last time. Remember what happened to you guys at the Week 18 fiasco with Denver, Kansas City, and the whole last seed shebang where he accused Kansas City of quitting on purpose? And guess who came after you? I'll go scorched earth, and you ain't going to like it. Enough of that. But I'll touch on you guys in a second because I got more to unload on you on another topic. But we're going to head up north to Cleveland. And it's something I thought this is something the Browns should have done week one. And let's start Dillon Gabriel. Joe Flacco, nice story. We know what he did in 2023. But the guy had no business being a starter in any team in the NFL anymore. I mean, he tried his best. But, he's 45 years old. You get what you're going to get out of him. Now's the time for Dillon Gabriel and eventually Shedeur Sanders to get their burn. This is something they should have done once the season started. If you would have done this, you wouldn't be in the mess you're in. Because the way the AFC North is right now, and we've seen what happened to Cincinnati and Baltimore with the key injuries, the key players, and the implosions. And Pittsburgh, the jury's still out. AFC North could be had. And it was a foregone conclusion in the beginning that with that talent, Baltimore's going to run away with it. And they still may turn around and win the division. I mean, they still may. It's possible somebody could come up here and win it. I mean, it's there to be had. Of course, there's a joke that Cleveland never won the division, which they could probably break that curse if they want to go down that route, because that defense is lights out. I mean, Myles Garrett and Mason Graham on that defensive front, that defense is lights out. But this quarterback move was something you should have made to start the season, and I don't know why you didn't make it. Because now you guys are behind the eight ball, per usual, because you guys are in Cleveland. And maybe it's a little bit too late. I don't know. But good luck on your first start. You're playing the Minnesota Vikings. And we know what they did to Cincinnati a couple of weeks ago. You might get the same treatment. But this is something that you should have done once the season started. Plain and simple. And I touched on the behavior of Bengals fans making fools of themselves again. And there's several others in this also. I'm sure there is. And there's some odd accusations about what I'm going to talk about. There's a lot of accusations floating around with apparently how Lamar Jackson supposedly checked out in that loss to Kansas City. And there's a whole bunch of odd accusations from a lot of teams. Well, let's start with this. If you're a Bengals fan and you're accusing Lamar Jackson of quitting, you have no room because you quit in consecutive weeks. You lost room to talk about somebody quitting because your team and your fan base and your media quit in Minnesota and quit in Denver. So there's your two strikes. You just lost room to talk about anybody quitting. It's an act of cowardice from Bengals fans if they want to talk about another player quitting after what happened the last 2 weeks. Look, what happened that day didn't look good for Lamar Jackson. I'll give it that. I mean, you're right on one thing. It didn't look good. You need to show me more to prove that you think he legitimately quit. Now, they're saying the guy has a hamstring. He might be out a couple weeks. For those that want to bust out the quit word, how do you guys look at the end of the day? Especially in Buffalo and Philly, who think Jalen Hurts and Josh Allen's in that same conversation. But it doesn't look good. What happened that day didn't look good, especially the way how Kansas has punched down Baltimore's throat, which I said was going to happen because Kansas City found something in the week before against the Giants. The momentum carried over, and I expect them to roll. That's another topic. But when you're getting pounded like that, and that sort of thing happens, we have weird assumptions across the particular fan base landscape. To say somebody quit when you don't know what it goes through a player's body is the same bunch of guys who don't have a balls to go onto an NFL field and pick up an NFL football. Those are the kind of people that would accuse Lamar Jackson of quitting. Do I think it's a bad look overall what he did? Yes. I mean, could he have finished the game? I mean, John Harbaugh said he couldn't, but we know how John Harbaugh acts on the press conferences for Baltimore. But first of all, for Bengals fans, shut up. You have no room to talk about quitting because your team quit twice. And by the way, you had a quarterback who just checked out week 2. We know who that was, and we know what happened. So shut up with that narrative. Second of all, the Ravens are just, not just him, but they got beat up in that entire game because that was Kansas telling the whole world, we're still here. I mean, it was paid for Baltimore to lose that game anyways. I mean, Kansas City was going to pretty much beat them and pretty much pound them. But to say somebody quit when basically it was a case of Kansas just show the whole world they're still boss is another thing. I mean, I get it. I mean, that will come out of my mouth because I'll admit I've never picked up an NFL football because I don't know what goes on in a player's mind. But if you're going to accuse someone of that particular word, one, make sure you have room because Bengals fans and Cincinnati media don't. Make sure you know that what's going on in a player's mind. It's a whole thing of odd look and a weird look, yes. But quitting, no. I mean, the guys were probably going to supposedly miss the next couple of weeks, but I think they have a bye after they play the Rams. So if they want to hold them out, that might be the best time to do it. Send them out the next 2 games against Houston and the Rams. And at the same time, when you talk about it, just remember one thing. It's just, I talk about this when I talk about the fight game. Same thing goes with the NFL game. Whoever wants to bust out the Q word when it comes to Lamar Jackson or any athlete, make sure you have grounds to stand on because nobody does, especially when we talk about a team who just quit the last 2 weeks in Minnesota and Denver, and we know who that is. I'll touch on that another day. But maybe if Lamar Jackson has a hamstring problem like they say he does, probably the best bet to sit him out these next 2 weeks because they have the bye after the Rams game, and the schedule after that starts to get a little lighter. Maybe, I've always said, if you have a team like this and you have these kind of key injuries, you find out what the team has and what they're made of. And maybe we'll find out what this Ravens team is really made of because they were pegged on paper to be at least an AFC title game this season, going to the Arrowhead and losing to Kansas City, at least across the landscape. But maybe we'll find out what their character is moving forward. A lot of people call them front runners. Depends on what your criteria is. They made the AFC title game 2 seasons ago. And of course, they had the loss last year in Buffalo. But I've said they're going to be fine. They're going to get their 11, 12 wins. They have bigger issues down the road, which I'll touch on as the season progresses. But right now, the biggest thing is just finding a way to ride the ship and getting the win against Houston on Sunday. I'll touch on that on Thursday when I give my predictions. Oh, and fan bases all over the place have such weird obsessions when it comes to use of particular words. I talked about it when I talked about the talk of the use generational a few weeks back when everyone wants to talk about generational talent when there isn't. But the problem is if you're going to use the word generational, make sure you know what it means. And if you're going to talk about an athlete quitting, make sure you have grounds to stand on. Not get your butts headed to you like a certain team did in Minnesota last Sunday and in Denver last night. Make sure you have something to talk about when you talk about the Q word because, I mean, Roberto Duran can tell you exactly what happened about that particular word because he had to live through it for the longest time. And granted, it's another sport and another dynamic, but that word came out of his mouth, and that's what everyone had to say about that particular thing. A lot of guys need to chill a little bit, especially in Cincinnati because you don't have a leg to stand on. I love the team. I love the fan base, but I'll never say the things 90% of them say because of Skyline Chili, alcohol, heroin, and uh, porta potty weight lines gets to your brain a little bit. And with them, it has. So that covers the NFL segment. It was brief. I'll just go to the historical aspect of the sport of boxing real quick. And it was 36 years ago tonight at Caesar's Palace in Las Vegas. It was the rematch between Larry Holmes and Ernie Shavers. Heavyweights can turn it into a punch. We know that. One punch, boom, you're out. With George Foreman in his hiatus, maybe the guy with that distinction was Ernie Shavers. And after losing the first time to Larry Holmes, he got a title eliminator where he just pulverized Ken Norton to get himself another title shot against Holmes. And this is after Larry Holmes won the vacant title from Ken Norton, which actually the odd circumstances got Norton the title because Muhammad Ali, after he beat Leon Spinks, said, "I'm done." So Holmes gets it. Shavers gets a title eliminator win over Ken Norton. And we have a rematch of a fight that basically Larry Holmes controlled the first time. And you would think for this minute that Larry Holmes was going to control this again. And it started out that way because we would talk about the great jab of Larry Holmes. Yeah, he showed it. Just kept Shavers at bay, not allowing himself to get hit. Shavers still trying to get inside that long pepper jab of Larry Holmes where he just sat aside among many other things. But when you talk about Larry Holmes in this particular fight, the first few rounds was what made him great. The jab, the ring IQ. He controlled the fight. But as the fight was going on, Shavers gradually started to get going. And as the fight was going on, he was trying to get inside the reach. They started mixing it up, but Larry Holmes was matching Shavers punch for punch. And after that, it was basically almost like a carbon copy of his first fight with Mike Weaver, which was his title defense before this. And we think about what Larry Holmes was all about. People think he was about just the left jab. He brought a more better offensive arsenal than you thought, and he showed it on this night because Ernie Shavers was coming. And for the first 6 rounds, it looked like we were going to have another boxing exhibition. But here comes the moment of truth as we fast forward into round 7. And basically, the moment where people wonder, can Ernie Shavers finally catch Larry Holmes? And then it happened. Holmes peppered him with a jab, left a lazy jab out there. And how do you time a lazy jab? Overhand right. And that's what Ernie Shavers did. And basically, the Hail Mary right, Larry Holmes hit the canvas. And it looked like Holmes was out cold because he admitted it was the hardest punch he ever took, and he felt it. And we thought, as a crowd at Caesar's Palace rose up, thought that Larry Holmes was going to be knocked out and Shavers was going to finally hit the pay dirt to become the heavyweight champion of the world. But one thing that people don't talk about with Larry Holmes, that they just do a lot of other heavyweights, the drive to be great and not wanting Ernie Shavers to have the moment in glory. He beats the count. And as he beat the count, guess what happens? He found a way to beat the count. And basically, the entire Caesar's Palace was in shock because many thought the punch, that overhand right that floored him, was going to be it. And we talk about that fight. And this particular fight, Holmes got up on his feet, was still a little wobbly. And basically, it looked like Ernie Shavers had the chance to seize control of the fight after the knockdown. Problem was, he didn't have the energy to go after him because the stamina took its toll. Because that was one of the bugaboos of Shavers. At times, the stamina wasn't necessarily all that great, and it showed here. Because he had Larry Holmes beat, ready to be knocked out, couldn't finish the job. And as the fight wore on, Ernie Shavers and Larry Holmes started to mix it up. But the stamina of Ernie Shavers showed as Larry Holmes found a second win after the knockdown, started to administer a beating, and the fight became one-sided. And at the 2-minute mark of round 11, the fight was stopped, and Larry Holmes was still the heavyweight champion of the world. The fight game, and I've said this about the fight game for the longest time, they have this weird inner cult, and because of this deep inner cult, their perception is different than you see in some of other sports, like the NFL, the NBA, among many others. But in the fight game, especially when it comes to Larry Holmes, and many thought he was more about the jab. This guy was more than just a jab. I mean, this guy could put punches together just as well as anyone. His chin was a lot better than you would think. I mean, the punch that Shavers knocked Holmes down with in this rematch was basically the case of Ernie Shavers could knock anybody out with that punch with, because that was how lethal of a puncher Ernie Shavers was. Maybe a top 10 puncher in boxing history. But when you talk about what took place on that night with that punch and he got up, so Larry Holmes was more about than just that left jab. He had heart, he had determination, he had grit, because you needed a lot of that to get up from the knockdown that Larry Holmes suffered when he lost, when he was hit by Ernie Shavers, excuse me. And when he got up and started to take over the fight, he took over the fight as if that knockdown didn't happen. That should tell you something about just how great Larry Holmes was. Middle of that 7.5-year, 20 successful title defenses. And there's basically the end game for Ernie Shavers. Never got to that level. Next fight got obliterated by Randall Tex Cobb. And we know what happened when Cobb eventually fought Larry Holmes shortly after that. But Ernie Shavers, a case of a guy, if he got you with a punch, it was it. But if you can get him and take his punch, it was it. It was essentially what happened in this second fight 36 years ago at Caesar's Palace. Larry Holmes got hit, and you thought it was it for Shavers. But when Holmes got up, it was it for Shavers because Holmes took over. That's what made this a compelling fight. And we talk about two contrasting styles. That's what you had when you talk about Holmes and Shavers. And these, I mean, basically, for the most part, Holmes controlled a big chunk of the first of these fights. But maybe the landmark moment, the telling moment of these two fights was when he got up from that crushing right cross by Ernie Shavers. The right cross that usually keeps fighters down and out. Holmes beat the count, took over the rest of the way, and just beat him up. Two terrific, an all-time great is Larry Holmes, and one of the premier pure punchers of all time at Ernie Shavers. And we coined the phrase pure hard puncher all we want. George Foreman, Joe Frazier, among many others, even Sonny Liston in that conversation. But when we talk about load up the fist, punch a hole through a brick wall, shatter the brick wall, and have no damage done to your fist type punching power, Ernie Shavers is certainly one of those, because he could clock. Larry Holmes still says today, he still feels that punch from Ernie Shavers, and it'll forever be the hardest punch he's ever taken. That should tell you about the power Ernie Shavers had. Shoot, even when Shavers, a couple years before, fought Muhammad Ali for the heavyweight title, Ali even said, Shavers is the hardest puncher I ever fought. And remind you, he fought Frazier, Foreman, and Liston, three of the baddest boys when it comes to punching power. And when Ali came out and said, Shavers hit harder than all of them, that's all you need to know about the power of Ernie Shavers and the respect of the power of Ernie Shavers, when you have two iconic greats like Muhammad Ali and Larry Holmes saying, this guy can crack, and this is the hardest punch I ever took. Sensational puncher is Ernie Shavers. May God rest his soul. And definitely a top 10 all-time great is Larry Holmes, still criminally underrated because nobody puts him in the all-time great category, which requires a hardcore explanation from the boxing fans and the boxing intelligentsia. A lot of explaining to do. And we're going to fast forward a little bit to a trip to Atlantic City. When we have foreign guys coming to the States, you know, especially unknowns, like we're about to talk about here with this particular fighter, it always creates one of those compelling stories that makes you want to find stories about. And what we had here 29 years ago in Atlantic City was basically a foreign fighter coming into the States against one of the young upstarts who was supposed to be the next big thing. And it was Lloyd Honeyghan coming into town to fight the undisputed welterweight champ Donald Curry. As the Four Kings era started to begin, maybe a bit of their downturn, because Sugar Ray Leonard had one of his many retirements. Hearns just came off the tough fight with Hagler. Hagler had the tough fight with Mugabe. And Roberto Duran still living in the cloud of no moss. Donald Curry was supposed to be one of the pound for pound star coming up. And when he obliterated Milton McQuarrie to clean out the welterweight division, the future, a lot of the future was his. And that left hook that starts McQuarrie and sent him down so hard you couldn't even see through his eyes. That tells you how hard he hit McQuarrie that night. The future was bright, and he was going to be the next big thing. Enter this guy from England named Lloyd Honeyghan, who was pegged as a 6-1 underdog with an awkward, not so crowd pleasing style. Everything was set up for a Curry showcase because he was trying to get one of the many guys that was trying to get Ray Leonard out of retirement, which I'll touch on that after I bring this up. But Lloyd Honeyghan came into this fight basically with a nothing to lose attitude, an odd, awkward style, and with him and the style of Donald Curry, you had a feeling something wasn't going to mesh. And we talk about what happened with this. And what happened with this. This is why we talk about in the sport, in all sports, you should talk about this, taking care of business. Because Curry had a bunch of paydays coming up with probably a couple of these four kings if he would have gone through and surpassed Lloyd Honeyghan. Problem was, management started conflicts in management and promoters, inability to make weight. And because of it, on this night, we talk about what happened. Donald Curry was unprepared. Lloyd Honeyghan was prepared. And Lloyd Honeyghan delivered a performance of perfection, albeit awkwardly, because he was an odd style. And even Donald Curry was an odd style, odd mesh. But basically, Donald Curry wasn't to be seen on this night. And here's Donald Curry, who's supposed to be the next big thing. He's supposed to be this next big thing as Hagler, Hearns, Leonard, and Durant hit the downturn. And Curry was going to be the next superstar. Because after the way he obliterated Milton McQuarrie, he was having that distinction of best fighter pound for pound. But Lloyd Honeyghan basically made him non-existent and basically irrelevant. And basically he controlled the fight from the beginning of the fight till the end of the sixth round where the headbutt cut took place and they went to the scorecards. And Lloyd Honeyghan was the undisputed welterweight champ, winning it on a technical decision. Basically, the quickness of Lloyd Honeyghan was just too much for Donald Curry. Curry couldn't even get off. In, out, in, out. That's what Lloyd Honeyghan did. And it goes to show you, when you have the future in front of you, as Donald Curry had, and you don't take care of business, you lose out on a lot, and he lost out on a lot. Because he was staring, he was trying to get Ray Leonard into one of the many guys that tried to get Ray Leonard out of retirement at that time. He was going to be pegged to fight with some of these part of the four kings with guys like Hagler and Durant. Had he decided to move up, which he probably would have because he was struggling to make the 147-pound limit. And when you were a 6-1 favorite and you let that happen in your own home country, it says a lot about you at the end of the day. And we talk about what could have been athletes and what could have been fighters, especially in this fight game. This fight basically shows why Donald Curry fits in that category. He had it in front of him, had a chance to do something, especially after he starts Milton McQuarrie, because McQuarrie was basically a dead corpse when that left hook hit him. And he was supposed to do the same to Lloyd Honeyghan. It didn't happen. And that's why what happened on that night in Atlantic City 29 years ago happened. Granted, Honeyghan was an odd style, just use his speed, just keep Donald Curry at distance, which is what he did. Not get touched by the power of Curry, which was his forte. And that's how Lloyd Honeyghan just dictated it. And of course, the awkward styles led to the headbutt, and the fight went to a technical decision. And at that point, Honeyghan was in control and won the unanimous decision. Maybe you could argue the biggest upset in British boxing history for a British fighter coming into the States. The biggest upset was when Randy Turpin shocked Sugar Ray Robinson. That's probably that for British history. But we talk about British fighters going onto the road, especially to the States, to shock a United States fighter. This was it. Because no one saw this coming. I mean, Lloyd Honeyghan was a virtual unknown unless you lived in London. Donald Curry was supposed to be the next big thing, surpassed after the Four Kings era. And of course, Hector Camacho, doing whatever the frick he wanted to do, among many others. But to come out and lay an egg on that particular night in Atlantic City, I think the biggest flaws were exposed on Donald Curry on that night. Because he never got remotely close to what he did when he starts Milton McCrory. And it started with this. When a bunch of out-of-the-ring issues, which carried over to him in the ring, but it's not an excuse for it because he had the talent to do something, but never did anything with it. And we talk about what happened 29 years ago in Atlantic City. It's the perfect example of it. He did manage to win a belt later on, but you can tell he was basically not the same. Basically, say really that his end game was a year later in '87 when he went to Las Vegas and was starched by Mike McCallum with a left hook. Basically, what happened at Curry against McCallum was what Curry did to Milton McCrory. The starched left hook, down and out for the count, party is over. And you can say when the Honeyghan fight started the downfall, maybe the McCallum fight was a final nail in his coffin. Though he did win a title, did fight twice more for world titles against Michael Nunn and Terry Norris, but he was basically a name for their resume at that point because he offered nothing, just got wiped out by both guys. But we see this in all sports, especially in the fight game. When you let stuff outside the ring or outside your profession follow you inside the way it does, and you lose track of who you are and what you are at the end of the day, that's going to happen. And you're going to fall in the category of what might have been. And we've seen every story imaginable, good, bad, pretty, or ugly. And Donald Curry fits that category. And of course, he tried to take Ray Leonard to court because apparently there was some mutual agreement after the McCrory fight for him to fight Leonard. But of course, Leonard agreed to the Hagler fight. But that just went down the tubes. And when Curry was starched by Mike McCallum, that was all she wrote. Was a talented fighter out of Dallas, Texas, but talent can only get you so far. If you don't have the extra variables to get to that next level, as I talk about with fighters and athletes, you're not going to amount to much. Maybe it's the case of Donald Curry's 5 minutes of fame were up when he starts Milton McCrory, and when the flaw was exposed by Lloyd Honeyghan and then by Mike McCallum, it was all she wrote for Donald Curry. Good talent, nothing more, nothing less. Quick side note when it comes to him, I heard he's not doing well at the moment. Some health problems. Godspeed, Donald Curry. But for Lloyd Honeyghan, his peak, he managed to fight many fights for the next few years, some high-profile fights in the States, notably guys against Mark Breland and Jorge Baca, and of course, until 1989, when his end really came when he lost to Marlon Sterling, was pegged to be a unification fight, but boxing politics got into the way. But Honeyghan was just beat up by Marlon Sterling, and that was his end game. But a very solid fighter, sort of a weird fighter, weird personality, but was a solid fighter coming out of London. But had his crowning glory 29 years ago in Atlantic City when he stunned Donald Curry as a 6-1 underdog. Maybe the biggest upset for a British fighter traveling to the States. And it was a shocker. And I conclude, we talk about bad management, maybe the epitome of what everyone likes to talk about. The capper came of this 19 years ago in New York. It was the final nail in the divorce of Mike Tyson versus Kevin Rooney. We know what happened with this. We know what happened when Mike Tyson was interviewed by Larry Merchant after the Chavez-Ramirez fight, basically saying, I'm going to Don King. I'm going to do it with Don King. I don't care what anyone says. I'll make my own decision. I make the decision to go to Don King, and I did. Kevin Rooney was calling the fight on HBO, basically saying, you can do whatever you want, but let's do it with you and me. And Mike Tyson, in that interview, said, I'm going to Don King, like it or not. And, of course, it was from that interview before his fight with Frank Bruno in '89. It was revealed that Mike Tyson terminated Kevin Rooney for a breach of whatever reasons. We know the story of that with Don King. And it was revealed at the time a breach of contract suit was filed by Kevin Rooney. It was announced by the HBO crew of Jim Lampley and Larry Merchant. Larry Merchant interviewed Kevin Rooney about it, and Rooney felt left in the dark. Took 7 years for it to get to this level for whatever reasons. Who knows? Of course, Mike Tyson being in prison for 3 years didn't help it either. And it was revealed that there was a breach of contract when Tyson terminated Rooney, and had to pay $4.4 million. It was originally ruled that Tyson could appeal the decision, which he initially did. He initially wanted appeal, But a second appeals court basically overrode it and said the contract was edged in stone. Mike Tyson has to pay Kevin Rooney $4.4 million. Because we know what happened after the two split up. We know what happened at the end of the day. I mean, it's chronicled. But the capper was what took place 19 years ago in a New York court. And it started, of course, when Mike Tyson said to Bill Clayton, Kevin Rooney, and all of them, "You're out. Don King, you're in." The rest is history. Mike Tyson fans, here's the thing. I say this with Bengals fans. I say this with Dodger fans. And I've said this for Mike Tyson fans, all three equally for the longest time. They have this weird cult thinking and this weird delusional thinking of backing their guy, backing their team, and they don't see the details because they don't know how to open their eyes correctly. And Mike Tyson fans are guilty of this when it comes to this situation. Because they say if Mike Tyson had Rooney, this would happen. If Mike Tyson had Rooney, that would happen. It was Mike Tyson who told Kevin Rooney to get out. You think that matters? No. Why? Because it was Mike Tyson who told Kevin Rooney to get out. He's going to Don King. That's what everybody misses. And he had to pay this man $4.5 million. Everybody acts like this Rooney Tyson marriage meant everything. That meant everything to Tyson. As much to Rooney also, because outside of Vinny Pazienza, I don't even know who Kevin Rooney had. But when you talk about the delusional thinking of Mike Tyson fans when it comes to this situation, thinking if prime Tyson with Rooney, this prime Tyson with Rooney was basically prime Tyson sending Rooney out. Prime Tyson sending Kevin Rooney out the door. That's what it was. Prime Tyson telling Kevin Rooney, get out. That's what happened. After the knockout of Michael Spinks, everything started at that point. We all know it because we had the Robin Givens fiasco, among many others. And Mike Tyson firing Kevin Rooney was probably the biggest thing and probably the best thing that happened to Mike Tyson fans. And I say this for this reason, because his downturn was coming even with Kevin Rooney, because he was a case of a guy who peaked so fast, so early. It was basically just wiping guys out. And the way he was doing it, he peaked so fast and so early that when he came crashing down, it was going to be a crash and burn. And it was going to come with Kevin Rooney or not. Basically, he knew. So basically, when he fired Kevin Rooney, he basically said, if you want to be a part of this, fine. But if you don't want to be part of it, get out. Kevin Rooney wanted Mike Tyson, and he wanted to be with Tyson as long as possible because Kevin Rooney still loved Mike Tyson. I mean, all the interviews Kevin Rooney did, he still gave love to Mike Tyson despite all of this. But when you talk about the breakup that this happened, and people say Mike Tyson lost his discipline when he fired Kevin Rooney. He started losing his discipline before he fired Kevin Rooney. It started before Kevin Rooney. This basically turned out to be a scapegoat, but the problem is the scapegoat cost him $4.5 million 7 years after he sent him out the door. I mean, that's the thing Mike Tyson fans forget. And it's not a shot at Mike Tyson. It's not a shot at Kevin Rooney, because they both at that time looked out for their best interest. It's the thinking of Mike Tyson fans thinking if he was going to keep Kevin Rooney, this guy was going to be such an unbeatable force. The downturn was starting to come before then, even with Kevin Rooney. There were some things, maybe Kevin Rooney could find a way to rally him or maybe circumvent him or keep things in a cloud if he didn't prevent that from happening. Probably the Buster Douglas debacle doesn't happen, I'll give you that. But the downfall was coming because he peaked so high so fast that at some point, if you're going to peak that high, that fast, that early, the crash and burn is going to come sooner than you think. I mean, it didn't matter if you had Kevin Rooney. He could have had George Benton. He could have had Emmanuel Stewart, Angelo Dundee. It didn't matter. The problem was Mike Tyson peaked fast and basically hit the apex too fast, too early. And when he was about to crash and burn, regardless of him firing Kevin Rooney or not. And what happened with this in 1996 when the official verdict came place, it was basically almost like saying, Mike Tyson, you made a mistake. I mean, I mean, I think he did. We all know. I mean, it's a no-brainer. The guy made a mistake telling Kevin Rooney get out for Don King. But the biggest issue thing, let me back up. The biggest issue with Mike Tyson fans wasn't always will be this. They think just having Kevin Rooney in the corner guarantees everything for Mike. It didn't. I mean, like I said, his basically his blessing and his curse was peaking so fast and becoming the national spotlight, which Mike Tyson became. He was. Before the adventure of internet, before social media, before blogging, Mike Tyson was the internet. Mike Tyson was social media because everyone wanted Mike Tyson for whatever reason. Whatever culture you're in, because he became a pop culture sensation. That's what he was. You give him that. But we talk about what happened with Tyson and Rooney. This is basically Mike Tyson. Let me back up. This is basically Mike Tyson fans trying to say that if he would have kept Kevin Rooney, he would have been fine. He would have retired undefeated and beat them all. No. Not saying, I mean, I'm not going to say yay or nay either way because nobody knows. But let me remind you, this guy's downfall basically started, you can probably say it started when Jim Jacobs passed. And Jim Jacobs was the closest thing to cuss that Mike Tyson had. That's one thing people don't talk about. Jim Jacobs was every bit the father figure to Mike Tyson as Cuss was. And when he passed, everything unraveled. I mean, everything came out. I mean, with Robin Givens, the 2020 interview with Robin Givens, this happened, the divorce, where Mike Tyson calls Robin Givens a feminist word. The lawsuit with Bill Caton, the accident with the BMW, among many things. And basically everything was headed this way when it came to Mike Tyson before the firing, because it was coming. It was coming. Whether it would have had the Buster Douglas debacle, I don't know if I would go that far. Kevin Rooney would have found a way to salvage that. But the heavyweight division was starting to get hot. What happened to Mike Tyson in and out of the ring started to catch up to him, even with Kevin Rooney. And basically Mike Tyson firing Kevin Rooney was basically trying to be a cop-out, as if to say, I'm trying to save my career. Kevin Rooney, you're one of the reasons why it's happening. You can go. Largely with the ear of Don King, and we know how that goes. But we talk about this breakup. At the end of the day, it was coming. It was going to come. Mike Tyson's downfall may have came with Kevin Rooney sooner than you thought, because it was starting even with Kevin Rooney. Because we talk about those two. Even if fights they won, Tyson doesn't necessarily wow it. I mean, he found a way to go 10 rounds with James Quick Tillis. He found a way to go 10 rounds with Mitch Bloodgreen. He found a way to go 12 rounds with James Bone Crusher Smith and Tony Tucker. He wasn't this guy that was going to plow you in 90 seconds in every fight. Everyone had this misperception when he and Rooney were together, how they just plowed over basically a checked out Michael Spinks. But it was that point with Kevin Rooney, the seals were starting to crack, even with Kevin Rooney. And when he had that interview on HBO with Larry Merchant, with Kevin Rooney at ringside, who called the Chavez-Ramirez fight, Mike Tyson said, I'm going to be with Don King, whether you like it or not. If Kevin Rooney wants to join me, fine. If not, he can go. That was the end. And of course, it was revealed in the interview Kevin Rooney had with Larry Merchant before the first Tyson-Bruno fight. Kevin Rooney basically said, I love Mike. I want this guy to do well. But, how he did me dirty, I'm not going to let it go. And that's why the breach of contract suit took place. And 7 years later, in front of a New York federal judge, it was ruled that Mike Tyson had to pay Kevin Rooney $4.5 million. Originally, it was declared as an at-will employment contract, but higher levels overturned it and said Mike Tyson has to pay Kevin Rooney. That's what happens when you are on your downturn. You can't gather yourself, and you don't know what's going on around you. That's what happened to Mike Tyson when he sent Kevin Rooney out the door before the first Tyson-Bruno fight. And the Kevin Rooney filed the lawsuit. And this misperception when it comes to Mike Tyson fans is Kevin Rooney would have solved all of the problems for Mike Tyson. Mike Tyson was having problems with Kevin Rooney. I mean, Mike Tyson was having the same problems with Kevin Rooney. Wasn't as scrutinized as it was later on, but he was having the same problems. The fortune and misfortune was he peaked so high, so fast. It was like a zooming jet coming out of the from underneath the ground. I mean, he peaked so fast and so early. It got everything at such a young age that when the time comes to where the downfall was going to begin, it happened a lot sooner than everyone thought. And it's not just because he fired Kevin Rooney. He basically mismanaged himself even with Kevin Rooney. It doesn't matter what Kevin Rooney had to say to Mike Tyson in and out of the ring. And no, I don't want to hear about Cuss either, because Cuss died before all of this happened with Mike Tyson, because that's just an excuse that Mike Tyson fans love to use. But it was 19 years ago, the final breakup between Mike Tyson and Kevin Rooney, that was officially declared that because Mike Tyson inexcusably fired Kevin Rooney while under contract. Rooney was awarded $4.5 million under breach of contract suit, flipped a couple times in these appeals courts, and then the final ruling was Mike Tyson had to pay him. But it says more about the fact that Mike Tyson just, as we know, mismanaged himself at the end of the day. You can have anyone at your ear. You can have people tell you things in your ear. I mean, Don King was telling Mike Tyson a bunch of stuff. We know that. And we know Mike Tyson was the cash cow at the back end of the 80s. He was. No brainer. It was Mike Tyson who made the decision, and it was Mike Tyson who peaked, and it was Mike Tyson who crashed and burnt. It wasn't because he fired Kevin Rooney. It wasn't because he went with Don King. It was because Mike Tyson couldn't handle the success of fame the right way, and it was Mike Tyson because he made the decision, he's the one that has to live with it. It was Mike Tyson that allowed that to happen. And Mike Tyson fans need to accept it. Because it was Mike Tyson who lost to James Buster Douglas, not because he didn't have Kevin Rooney, because he wasn't fighting Kevin Rooney or Robin Givens that night. He was fighting James Buster Douglas. Not having Kevin Rooney wasn't the reason why Mike Tyson lost to Evander Holyfield. He was fighting Evander Holyfield. I mean, was Kevin Rooney the superhero for Mike Tyson? No. Even Kevin Rooney would say that. And even Rooney said a couple of times, as much as he loved Mike, he saw this coming long before Tyson sent him out the door. I mean, he knew it. I mean, that's why that thing with Teddy Atlas took place once upon a time. And when Mike Tyson fans lambast Teddy Atlas for the stuff he says, that's because Teddy Atlas was the one that correctly called Mike Tyson bowing out with the ear bite against Evander Holyfield in their second fight. And Mike Tyson fans don't know how to accept it. Plain and simple. Pop culture sensation was Mike Tyson. He was a pop culture sensation. Got you talking. Got you glued to everything he did in and out of the ring. But everything ends right there. And when he fired Kevin Rooney, it wasn't because of Don King. It wasn't because of Robin Givens. It was because of Mike Tyson. He was a grown enough adult to make his own decisions. And he was the one who made the decisions and has to accept accountability for it. Not because Don King basically put a gun to his head. Don King did not put a gun to Mike Tyson's head to say, fire Kevin Rooney. Don King did not do that. You can say a lot of things about Don King, but he did not do that to Mike Tyson. It was Mike Tyson who made the decision to tell Kevin Rooney, you're done. And Don King might have had an influence. Yeah, he might have had an influence, but he didn't hold a gun to Mike Tyson's head to say, fire Kevin Rooney. Mike Tyson had the option to tell Don King, I'm not firing Kevin Rooney. He didn't. He went ahead and fired him. And that's why he had to pay $4.5 million 7.5 years after we fired him. That's why I tell everyone at the end of my shows, take care of you. And if you take care of you first, good things will follow. Mike Tyson didn't do that. And that's why that happened. Rest is history. And that'll wrap up this edition of Sir Hunt on X. Tomorrow night, it will be the super show of a historical significance, because a global event just captivated the world. I relive that moment. And as I always say at this time of the night, if you miss this show or any others, you can catch the replays on the Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, and Spotify apps. And as I just said a second ago, take care of yourself first. If you don't take care of yourself first, nothing else matters. If you take care of yourself first, all the good things will come your way. Stay true to yourself. That's the only thing that matters. Mike Tyson didn't do that when he fired Kevin Rooney. Have a good rest of the night. Take care of yourselves. God bless. Enjoy the evening. And I'll see you tomorrow night.